8 passengers left behind on an island. A family walking out $3,000 over budget with no idea how it happened. A cabin steward who watched someone chase a table with a phone left as a reserve sign. I spent 14 years behind the guest services desk on a cruise ship, and I watched the same 15 mistakes destroy vacations, wallets, and sometimes safety over and over again, sailing after sailing, year after year. Today I'm ranking them from bad to absolutely worst, and the last one on this list is the one I still think about. Number 15. Thinking your cruise is truly all-inclusive. Passengers walk on board convinced everything is covered, then stand at my desk on the last night staring at a bill they can't explain. I watched one family on a 7-day Caribbean sailing rack up around $3,200 in extra spending they never budgeted for. Drinks, specialty dining, Wi-Fi, excursions, photos, spa treatments, none of it included, all of it adding up quietly in the background all week long, one small charge at a time until it becomes a genuine shock on the final printout. Nobody sets out to overspend. They just never add up the small charges until it's far too late to change anything. And by then, the only option left is a very uncomfortable conversation at guest services. The fix is boring, but it works every single time. Before you sail, research every chargeable category on your specific ship and add a realistic daily spending estimate per person on top of your fare. Do that math before you board, not after you see the total printed on a slip of paper in front of a line of impatient people behind you. It takes 20 minutes online, and it saves you from the exact scene I watched play out at my desk almost every single week. Here's a mistake that costs you before you even unpack. Number 14. Not pre-booking restaurants and activities. Day one on any ship is a feeding frenzy, and I mean that literally. The organized passengers book their steakhouse reservation and their headline shore excursion within the first hour, sometimes before they've even unpacked a single suitcase or found the ice machine on their deck. The passengers who wander up whenever they feel like it find everything gone, and there is nothing staff can do to conjure up a table that simply does not exist anymore for the rest of the week. I watched the same disappointed faces at my desk every single sailing, asking why nothing was ever available for them anymore, as if the ship had personally singled them out. Treat your pre-cruise online reservations like concert tickets. Book first, adjust later, because availability on a modern cruise ship is deliberately scarce by design, built to push you toward paid alternatives once the free slots vanish completely. Log into your cruise planner the moment it opens, sometimes weeks before you even pack a bag. This next one turns a relaxing port day into a nightmare with almost no warning. Number 13. Overscheduling port days with no buffer. Independent shore tours look perfect on paper until traffic, weather, or a slow guide eats into your margin without any warning at all. Norwegian Cruise Line once left 8 passengers behind on an island because their private tour ran long, and the ship simply is not obligated to wait for you on a tour it didn't organize itself. I watched passengers sprint down piers more times than I can count, all because they scheduled their return with zero room for anything at all to go wrong that day. The ship's own excursions get priority and direct communication with the bridge. Private tours get neither of those advantages ever. Build at least 60 to 90 minutes of buffer before all aboard time if you're not on a ship-run excursion. That buffer is the only thing standing between you and watching your ship leave the dock without you on it. And if a tour operator promises they'll get you back in time, remember that promise means nothing to the captain. Quiet mistakes are often the most dangerous, and this next one sneaks up on even experienced cruisers. Number 12. Ignoring ship time versus local time. Passengers follow their phone's local time instead of ship time, especially when the ship crosses a time zone or simply chooses to run on a different clock to protect its own schedule. I've seen seasoned travelers, People on their 10th or 11th cruise forget to manually check this and walk up to the pier a full hour late, completely convinced the entire time that they were early. It happens most on itineraries with multiple time zone changes packed into a single week at sea, especially transatlantic routes. Treat ship time as the only reality that matters for the entire week you're on board. Set a physical watch or an alarm to it the moment you board, and never trust your phone's automatic clock to make that decision for you again. Announcements over the ship's speakers always use ship time too, so let that be your anchor. Let's talk about the 20 minutes passengers treat like an inconvenience but crew treat like survival training. Number 11. Skipping or treating the muster drill as a joke. That drill teaches you the evacuation procedure and life jacket use specific to that exact ship, and those procedures genuinely differ from one cruise line to the next one entirely. I watched passengers show up late, talk through the entire briefing, or skip it outright, relying on what they confidently called common sense instead of actual training. Those are always the exact same people who panic and clog stairwells the moment something actually goes wrong out at sea. From a pure survival standpoint, that drill is the single most important 20 minutes of your entire cruise, full stop. Show up on time, pay attention, and know exactly where your muster station is before you do anything else on board. It's the one drill on the entire ship where being bored is actually the goal because it means nothing went wrong. This next mistake looks like a vacation perk, but it puts more passengers in my office than almost anything else did. Number 10. Buying unlimited drink packages you can't safely use. Most unlimited packages only make financial sense if you're drinking somewhere around 12 to 15 alcoholic beverages a day, which is a number that should alarm you, not excite you at all. Combine that kind of drinking with heat, ship motion, and unfamiliar surroundings, and you get falls, pool accidents, and late-night incidents that crew have to manage constantly all week long. I personally dealt with more late-night disputes over these packages than almost any other single issue on board, and most of them were entirely avoidable. Buy your drinks a la carte, use happy hour windows, or only get the package if you genuinely know your limits and plan to stay well under them the whole cruise. Your liver, your wallet, and your dignity will all thank you by the final night, and so will the friends you're traveling with. Now we move from money and safety into the invisible stuff that actually gets you sick. Number 9. Touching high-contact surfaces with bare fingers. I stopped pressing elevator buttons and handrails with my fingertips years ago, and I still don't do it, because norovirus survives on those surfaces even after sanitizer wipes through them. Outbreaks on ships have been traced directly back to shared buffet utensils and elevator buttons touched by hundreds of strangers throughout a single day. It sounds paranoid until you've watched an entire deck get quarantined because of exactly this. Cabins sealed, meals delivered on trays for days. Use your knuckle or your elbow instead of your fingertip on every button and railing you touch, and pair that habit with obsessive hand washing before every single meal you eat. Hand sanitizer stations exist at every dining room entrance for exactly this reason, so actually use them. Here's a habit that quietly tells every thief in port exactly who to target next. Number 8. Wearing your room key around your neck. A flashy lanyard or a status key card worn openly screams that you have money and valuables to anyone watching in a crowded, unfamiliar port. I noticed the highest status passengers, the ones with the most loyalty points, almost never showed off their cards for exactly this reason. They understood the risk better than most others on board. Pickpockets in busy ports specifically look for exactly these kinds of visible status signals before they choose a target, and a lanyard is an easy one to spot. Keep your key card discreet, tucked in a pocket or a bag, and never wear it as jewelry once you actually step off the ship. The same goes for expensive watches and jewelry in unfamiliar port towns. Number 7. Leaving valuables to reserved tables. Passengers routinely leave phones, wallets, and bags sitting on a table to hold their spot, then walk off into a crowded buffet line completely out of sight of their own belongings. In a chaotic, high-traffic environment, not everyone around you is honest, and staff genuinely cannot monitor every single table on that deck at once, no matter how hard we tried to help. I recovered maybe 1 in 5 items reported stolen this way, and that's being generous with the number, honestly. If you have to reserve a spot, use something low value like a hat or ask a nearby crew member to keep an eye on it while you're briefly away. Crew are usually happy to help, but they can't be held responsible for something they never agreed to watch. Pride causes more medical emergencies at sea than almost anything else I personally saw. Number 6. Failing to declare health issues or mobility limits. Guests hide cardiac issues, severe asthma, or mobility problems out of embarrassment, and then struggle badly during tender operations or long shore excursions with no one prepared to help them. Ships can usually offer assistance, alternate routes, or medical guidance if they know about a condition in advance, but options shrink fast once you're already mid-crisis on a dock somewhere far from home. I've seen entire excursions delayed because a passenger collapsed after hiding a known condition for the whole trip, putting everyone else's day at risk too. Over-communicate your health constraints to the cruise line before you sail, and again to guest services or the medical center once you're actually on board. There is genuinely no downside to giving the crew more information than they ask for. This next mistake turns a buffet line into a genuine medical gamble. Number 5. Treating allergies casually in buffet environments. Cross-contamination happens constantly when serving utensils get moved between dishes or when guests self-serve carelessly around shared, crowded stations. I watched passengers rely on a single small sign instead of speaking to a supervisor or a chef directly, and then suffer a reaction hours later in the middle of the ocean with limited medical resources nearby. Severe reactions at sea mean hours away from a proper hospital, not minutes like on land, and that gap can be the difference that matters most. Coordinate with the cruise line about allergies before you even sail, and always work directly with a restaurant manager rather than frontline buffet staff who are moving fast. Most dining rooms can prepare an allergy-safe plate ahead of time if you simply give them a day's notice. Curiosity gets more passengers in trouble here than almost anywhere else on the ship. Number 4. Entering crew-only or back-of-house areas. Passengers slip into staff stairwells, maintenance zones, or galley corridors out of pure curiosity, not realizing these are active workspaces full of hazards nobody ever warned them about. Beyond the very real risk of a trip, a fall, or a burn, wandering into these areas can genuinely get you disciplined or removed at the very next port of call entirely. I personally escorted more curious passengers out of the galley than I could ever count over 14 years working that desk. Those crew-only signs are not bureaucratic rules for the sake of rules. They are real safety boundaries drawn around active machinery and moving equipment. Curiosity is natural, but it belongs on a ship tour, not a solo wander through a service corridor. This next mistake doesn't hurt you until the exact moment you desperately need it not to. Number 3. Ignoring medical cost reality and sailing without insurance. Shipboard medical care and emergency evacuations can run into 5 figures fast, and I've personally watched uninsured passengers face bills that wiped out their savings in a single afternoon at sea. Most travelers assume their regular health insurance automatically covers them at sea, and that assumption is very often completely wrong for out-of-country maritime treatment. A helicopter evacuation alone can cost more than most people's entire annual salary back home, and it's billed directly to you, not the cruise line. Buy travel insurance that explicitly names cruise medical care and emergency evacuation coverage every single time you sail. No exceptions whatsoever. Read the fine print carefully, because not every travel policy actually covers care received at sea. Now we're at the mistake that costs you something you can never get back on a cruise, a good night's sleep. Number 2. Choosing cabins in noisy or high-motion locations. Cabins directly under the pool deck, near the nightclub, or at the extreme front or back of the ship can suffer constant noise or heavy motion that ruins sleep night after night without you realizing why. Chronic fatigue. From that kind of cabin makes passengers noticeably less alert on stairs, gangways, and tender platforms, exactly when alertness matters the most. I've watched exhausted passengers stumble on wet decks after a week of interrupted sleep they never once traced back to their cabin location. Research the deck plan obsessively before you book, and treat cabin location almost as seriously as you treat the itinerary itself when planning the trip. A midship cabin on a lower deck is almost always the calmest, quietest option available. And this brings us to the one mistake that ends the entire trip in a single moment. Number 1. Missing the ship entirely. I have personally watched passengers run down piers, arriving minutes too late, only to stand there and watch their ship pull away from the dock without them on it. If you miss departure while on a non-ship excursion, you are almost always responsible for arranging and paying for your own transportation to catch up at the next port or home, entirely on your own dime and your own schedule. It is, without question, the single worst moment I ever witnessed at that desk in 14 years of working this job. Out of everything on this entire list, this is the single non-negotiable rule of any cruise, the one rule that overrides every other rule. Never, under any circumstance, risk missing sail away, no excursion, no souvenir, and no extra hour in port is ever worth that outcome. Like and subscribe for more.